When I found that phone under our bed, it wasn't rage that hit me first. It was the sound, that small, sharp buzz against the wooden floor. A vibration that sliced through the quiet of our Sunday morning like a whisper of betrayal. I remember kneeling down, half asleep, thinking it was my own phone that had fallen. But when my fingers brushed against cold metal, thinner, lighter, unfamiliar, something inside me stilled. I turned it over, and that's when I saw it. No case, no scratches, nothing. A phone too new to be forgotten, too clean to be lost. I didn't open it. Not yet. I just sat there on the bedroom floor, sunlight sneaking through the curtains, painting thin lines across the wood. My husband, Arjun, was in the shower, humming the same old tune he always did, a habit that used to comfort me. Now it sounded distant, like a memory I couldn't trust anymore. It's strange, isn't it? How you can live with someone for 15 years and still, in a single heartbeat, realize you don't really know them at all. Normal life/setup. Before that morning, my life wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. I worked part-time as a librarian at the community center, a quiet job that suited me. Arjun ran a small construction business, steady, if not spectacular. We had our routines, our small comforts. Tea together at 6:30 every morning. Sunday breakfasts with too much butter. Lazy movie nights on the couch when he wasn't working late. There were disagreements, of course. He forgot anniversaries. I scolded him for leaving socks everywhere. He called me old-fashioned when I wouldn't post pictures of us online. But those were the kind of arguments that dissolve over a shared laugh and a cup of chai. We had one son, Arav, our pride. He was in his second year of college, living away from home. The house had been quieter since he left. Sometimes too quiet. I tried to fill that silence with small things, tending to my potted plants, knitting scarves I didn't need, rearranging bookshelves for the 5th time. Arjun said I was too sentimental. Maybe I was. But in a world that keeps changing, I liked holding on to little things that didn't. Lately, though, Arjun had changed. It started subtly, like a shadow creeping over familiar walls. He'd begun spending more time outside, claiming new contracts, late client meetings, sudden outstation trips. He'd come home smelling faintly of perfume, not mine. But I told myself it was from shaking hands, sitting in taxis, the random air of the city. Because I wanted to believe him. When you love someone for years, you learn to protect your peace by ignoring small tremors. You tell yourself it's just work stress, just tiredness, just life. I didn't realize then that just is how betrayal begins. The first time I suspected something, it wasn't even about the phone. It was about distance. Arjun had always been affectionate, small gestures, nothing grand. He'd bring home samosas when I mentioned a craving, or touch my shoulder lightly as he passed by me in the kitchen. But lately, his touch had changed. It was mechanical, almost polite. He'd smile, but it never reached his eyes. I tried to talk to him one night. We were having dinner, dal, rice, and fried okra, his favorite. Arjun, I said softly, you've been different lately. Is everything okay? He looked up, mid-bite, then back down again. Work, he said, chewing too quickly. Big project, you know. Don't start imagining things. I'm not imagining. Mira, he interrupted, his tone sharp. Can we not do this tonight? I'm exhausted. I nodded and looked away, pretending to focus on the flicker of the dining room candle. But inside, a small ache had begun to take root. Still, I convinced myself it was fine. Marriages go through phases. After 15 years, people grow comfortable quiet. Maybe he just needed
That
space.
weekend,
I decided to surprise him, to bring back some warmth. I cleaned the entire house, cooked his favorite biryani, even wore the silk sari he once said made me look like a bride again. He came home late. Too late. The food had gone cold. When I opened the door, he looked startled, like he hadn't expected to see me still awake. Didn't I tell you I might be late? He said, loosening his tie. You said 9. It's almost midnight. He sighed. Traffic. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But the smell that followed him in, that faint mix of expensive perfume and cigarette smoke, didn't belong to him. Arjun hadn't smoked in years. That night, as he showered, I stood by the window, watching his reflection blur behind the frosted glass. My hands trembled. I told myself, don't go looking for proof. You'll regret it if you find it. But proof, I learned, doesn't wait to be found. It finds you. The morning I found that phone, the universe didn't send thunder or warning signs. It was just another day, quiet, ordinary. The kind of day when betrayal hides best. I remember how the sunlight hit the floor. The sound of his humming in the shower. The smell of my freshly brewed tea mixing with the faint scent of his shaving cream. And then the buzz. The phone was tucked deep under his side of the bed, almost pressed against the wall. I picked it up, hesitating. There was a message notification on the lock screen, just one word visible, tonight, followed by a heart emoji. My heart didn't race. It stopped. In that silence, all the small moments I had brushed aside came back like a flood. The late nights, the sudden trips, the distracted smiles, the new cologne. He came out of the shower then, towel around his waist, water dripping from his hair. He saw the phone in my hand and froze. For a split second, his face gave everything away, panic, guilt, calculation. Then he forced a laugh. Oh, that? It's a work phone, he said, too quickly. New client. I forgot to tell you. Locked with a password? I asked quietly. He hesitated. Company policy. I smiled, or maybe it was just a twitch of disbelief. And does your company send hearts to you now? The silence that followed was deafening. He froze, towels still in hand, as if the air had turned to stone between us. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Only the dripping of water from his hair onto the floor filled the space. Mira, he said finally, his voice dropping low, you're overreacting. It's just a client. She's playful like that. Playful? I repeated, each syllable trembling in my mouth. So now hearts mean business? He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. You always do this. You make something out of nothing. Why can't you trust me? Trust. The word cut deeper than I expected. For 15 years, I had built our life on that word. I trusted him when he said the project needed another late night. I trusted him when he called from out of town, claiming poor network. I trusted him when he smiled at his phone and said it was just a meme from a coworker. I looked at the phone again, its black screen reflecting my own shaking hand. Then unlock it, I whispered. He stepped back slightly. I told you, it's work. There's confidential stuff. Unlock it. He didn't move. His lips parted, but no sound came. And in that silence, I knew. I didn't need to see the messages. I didn't need to know her name. I could read it all in the quiet panic of his eyes. I placed the phone gently on the bed and walked past him. My tea on the nightstand had gone cold. The steam had died just like something inside me. For days after that, we lived like ghosts sharing a roof. We didn't fight, not really. But we also didn't talk. He tried to act normal, leaving early, coming home late, watching TV with exaggerated calm. And I pretended to, cooking meals, watering plants, calling Arav as if nothing had changed. But every time I looked at him, I saw that phone in my hand again. Every smile, every good night, every sigh sounded like a lie trying to stay alive. I told myself to wait, to breathe, to be sure. Because maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. Then came the day that erased every doubt. It was a Thursday evening, 2 weeks after the phone incident. Arjun said he had an overnight work trip to Pune. I nodded, pretending not to care. But when he left that night, suitcase in hand, something inside me whispered, follow him. I almost didn't. It felt foolish, desperate, beneath my dignity. But the ache of uncertainty is heavier than shame. So I called his driver, the same one who'd been with us for years. Ramesh, I said softly, where is Sir's hotel booking tonight? He hesitated. Madam, he didn't say Pune. He told me to drop him at Hyatt Residency near Worli. Worli. Just 40 minutes away. My throat went dry. And after that? He said I could go. He'd manage from there. I thanked him, voice steady somehow, and hung up. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the wall clock ticking toward 9:30. Then I grabbed my shawl and keys. The city looked different that night, colder, quieter. The streets were slick with rain, streetlights reflecting on puddles. I parked near the hotel, heart thudding in my ears, watching people walk in and out through the glass doors. Minutes felt like hours. Then I saw him, Arjun, stepping out of a cab. His shirt untucked, face relaxed, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months. He wasn't alone. A woman walked beside him, tall, young, her laughter sharp enough to slice through the rain. She held onto his arm like she'd done it 100 times before. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The world tilted. My fingers gripped the steering wheel so tight they ached. They disappeared inside together. I sat there for a long time, rain blurring everything, the streetlights, the building, my reflection in the rearview mirror. It all looked like one smudged truth I didn't want to see. When I finally drove home, the silence in our house felt unbearable. His shoes still by the door. His toothbrush beside mine. His photo smiling from the mantel like a cruel joke. I wanted to scream. To throw things. To break something, anything. But instead, I cried. Quietly, bitterly, into the folds of my shawl until dawn bled through the curtains. The next morning, I made tea. The same routine, the same cup. Only my hands trembled as I stirred the sugar. I knew I had to confront him, but I also knew I couldn't do it in rage. Rage burns fast. I needed something slower, steadier. When he came home that evening, he acted normal. Kissed my forehead, said, "Trip went well." I smiled, a calmness he didn't recognize. "Good," I said. "You must be tired." I made tea. He sat down, loosened his collar, took the cup. "You're not upset anymore?" he asked, watching me closely. I realized something, I said softly. Maybe I was imagining things after all. You were right. His shoulders relaxed. Relief flickered in his eyes. And that was when I asked, casually, "Oh, before I forget, can you give me your work phone? Arav needs a charger, and mine's dead." The cup froze halfway to his lips. "It's charging upstairs." I smiled again, tilting my head. "No problem. I'll grab it." He shot up instantly. No, I'll get it." I watched him disappear upstairs, my heart heavy with quiet certainty. When he came back, the phone wasn't in his hand. "Battery's dead," he muttered, eyes avoiding mine. I just nodded. "Of course it is." That night, I waited until he fell asleep. His breathing deep, steady, the sound of a man who believed his lies had survived the day. Then I slipped out of bed, tiptoed to his bag, and found it. The same hidden phone, switched off this time, tucked under his shirts. I turned it on. It was locked again, of course. But unlike last time, I was ready. I typed the only password that made sense, our anniversary date. The screen unlocked. The wallpaper was a photo, not of me, not of Arav, but of her. The same woman from the hotel, smiling at him. Her arm around his neck. Their faces too close. My vision blurred, but I forced myself to scroll. There were hundreds of messages, long threads of late-night confessions, "I miss yous," "can't wait to hold you against," and plans for trips that I thought were business meetings. In one thread, he'd even promised her just a few more months. "I'll tell Mira. I can't keep lying." Lying. I closed my eyes, the word echoing like a prayer gone wrong. For 15 years, I had forgiven small betrayals, forgotten birthdays, broken promises, careless words. But this was not forgettable. This was the kind of betrayal that rewrites your history. And that night, I realized something painful but freeing. I could forgive mistakes. I could forgive flaws. But I would never again forgive deceit. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, staring at that glowing screen until the words stopped meaning anything. Until my tears ran dry. When dawn came, I wasn't angry anymore. I was empty. Like someone had drained every bit of color from my life, leaving only outlines of what once was. The first bird outside my window began to sing, and for the first time in years, I didn't rush to make breakfast or iron his shirt. I just watched the sunlight crawl across the floor and thought, so this is what betrayal looks like in daylight. At 8 a.m., Arjun stirred awake. He yawned, stretched, then glanced at me sitting by the window. "You're up early," he said casually, unaware that his world was about to collapse. I turned to him, calm, steady. "Arjun, I know." He froze, confusion flickering across his face. "Know what?" "About her." The words hung heavy between us. He tried to smile, to feign innocence, but I raised my hand. "Don't lie. Not this time." I saw the messages. The photos. Everything. For a moment, he just stared. Then he exhaled, long and slow, as if a secret too heavy to hold had finally been dropped. His shoulders slumped. "Mira, I didn't mean for you to find out like this." A bitter laugh escaped my throat. "So you were going to tell me? When, Arjun? After our anniversary dinner? Or maybe when Arav came home from college?" He looked down. I don't know. It just happened." "It just happened?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "You call months of lying and sneaking around something that just happened?" He didn't answer. Instead, he rubbed his temples, his voice low. "You and we haven't been happy for a long time, Mira. You know that." I felt my chest tighten. "And that gives you permission to betray me?" He looked up then, eyes filled with something that almost looked like pity. "I'm not saying it was right. I'm saying it's complicated. She understands me." That sentence, "she understands me," was the knife. Not the act, not the affair, not even the lies. It was the idea that someone else now held the parts of him I once thought were mine alone. I stood, my hands trembling. "You know what's complicated, Arjun? Building a life together. Raising a child. Forgiving your husband's ego, his moods, his silence. That's complicated. What you did is cowardly." He didn't fight back. Didn't shout. Didn't even apologize. He just sat there, head bowed, like a man who'd already accepted the ruins he'd created. That hurt more than any words could. The next few days passed like fog. He moved around the house quietly, as if walking on broken glass. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me, guilt etched deep into his face. But I didn't speak much. Not because I was forgiving him, but because I needed silence to think, to feel without being manipulated. Arav called one evening. "Mom, you sound different. Everything okay?" I almost said yes. But then I realized how many times I'd hidden the truth from him, from myself. So I said softly, "No, Beta. Not really. But it will be." That night, I packed a small bag. Just essentials. When Arjun came home, he looked at it and frowned. "Where are you going?" "To my sister's for a few days," I said simply. "I need space." He nodded, almost relieved. "That's fair. Maybe we both need time." I smiled faintly. "Time won't fix what you broke, Arjun. But it might help me remember who I am without you." At my sister Kavita's house, I finally allowed myself to fall apart. She listened silent, tears streaming as I spoke. When I finished, she took my hands and said, "You don't owe him your pain, Mira. You gave him loyalty. He gave you lies. Don't let guilt make you small." Her words were a balm. Because for years I had been small, folding myself to fit his moods, his priorities, his timelines. Now, for the first time, I felt the raw ache of standing tall again. A week later, Arjun called. Dozens of missed calls, dozens of unread messages. Finally, I picked up. "Mira, please. I can't sleep. I made a mistake." I ended it with her. I closed my eyes, his voice familiar yet foreign now. "Did you end it because you love me or because you got caught?" He went silent. And in that silence, I had my answer. I spoke quietly, with a steadiness that surprised even me. "I'm not angry anymore, Arjun. But I can unsee what I saw. You taught me that love without honesty is just habit. And I'm done living in habit." He tried again, desperation creeping in. "We can fix this. For Arav's sake. For Arav's sake, I said, I need to show him that his mother knows her worth. Then I ended the call. The next morning, I met a lawyer. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted peace. I wanted to reclaim the quiet that used to mean comfort, not suspicion. Filing those papers felt strange, like signing away half of my past. But it also felt clean, honest. When I walked out of the courthouse, the sun was warm on my face. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone's wife, someone's shadow. I just felt like me. Weeks passed. Arjun tried reaching out again. Letters, messages, apologies that came too late. I didn't respond. One afternoon, I sat in the small garden behind Kavita's house, pruning plants, when Arav called. Mom, he said softly, Dad told me everything. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Tears pricked my eyes, but my voice was calm. Don't be sorry, Beta. Just remember, people will fail you, but never fail yourself. He was quiet for a while. Then he said, You sound strong, Ma. I smiled. Because I am. Months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, I walked past the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Her hair was streaked with silver, her face softer, wiser. But her eyes, they weren't tired anymore. That day, I made myself a cup of tea, sat by the same window where everything had fallen apart, and whispered, Thank you, Mira, for surviving. Because sometimes, forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about letting go of the version of you that kept begging to be loved by someone who didn't deserve it. Sparkle's closing narration for the voices of Auntie May tone. They say time heals all wounds. But I've learned that time doesn't heal, truth does. And the truth is simple. I was enough all along. He just never saw it. So if you're listening, wondering whether to stay in a love that keeps breaking you, remember this. Peace is not found in someone's arms. It's found in your own reflection. The moment you choose yourself, a year can change everything. The pain that once lived in my chest had softened into something quieter, not gone, but no longer sharp. I had moved into a small apartment near my sister's house, found a part-time job teaching art at the community center, and learned to enjoy the small, steady rhythms of being alone. In the mornings, I watered the plants that lined my balcony. At night, I listened to old songs I hadn't played in years, songs that once made me cry, but now made me feel whole again. Arav had just started his final year at university. He'd grown into such a gentle young man, patient, thoughtful, always calling to check on me. Sometimes, when I heard his voice, I thought, maybe I didn't fail after all. Maybe love, even broken, can raise something good. It was a quiet Sunday evening when I heard the knock on my door. 3 soft taps, hesitant, familiar. When I opened it, I saw him. Arjun. He looked older. Not by years, but by regret. His hair had thinned at the temples. His eyes carried the weight of too many sleepless nights. He held a small bouquet of marigolds, the same flowers he used to bring me every anniversary. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said softly, You look well, Mira. I nodded. I am. He looked around the small apartment, his eyes lingering on the framed paintings, the warm yellow lights. It's beautiful, he said. It's peaceful, I replied. He smiled faintly. You always did love peace. I motioned for him to sit. He hesitated, then stepped inside. We sat across from each other, 2 people who had once shared a life, now separated by silence and an ocean of choices. After a while, he said, I wanted to see you. To tell you that I'm sorry, again. I looked at him, searching his face. Arjun, you've said that before. I know, he said quickly, but I mean it this time. I've changed. I'm not the man who hurt you. I sighed. Change is a quiet thing, Arjun. It doesn't announce itself. He looked down at his hands. I left my job in the city. I'm staying with my cousin now. I thought maybe we could talk. Maybe start again. My heart tightened, not from love, but from memory. There was a time when those words would have lit up every broken corner inside me. But not anymore. Arjun, I said softly, you broke something that couldn't be glued back together with apologies. He looked up, eyes glistening. I know. I just hoped. Hope is good, I interrupted gently. But some hopes are meant to die, so new ones can live. He leaned forward, desperation creeping into his voice. Don't you miss it, Mira? Us? The house, the mornings, the laughter. I smiled, not bitterly, just sadly. I miss who I thought we were, not who we became. He fell silent. The ticking of the clock filled the room. Then, after a long pause, I said, "Do you know what hurt the most, Arjun? It wasn't that you cheated. It was that you made me question my own worth, my sanity, my instincts. You made me believe that love was something to earn. It took me a long time to unlearn that." He lowered his head, tears falling quietly. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "You already have it," I said. "I forgave you a long time ago. Not for your sake, but for mine." Forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about letting yourself move on. He looked at me then, really looked. And I think, for the first time, he saw the woman who had always been standing in front of him, not the version he tried to mold. After a while, he stood up. "You're stronger than I remember." I smiled. "No, I'm finally myself." He nodded, quietly setting the marigolds on the table. "You used to love these." "I still do," I said, touching the petals. "But they belong to the season, not the memory." He turned to leave, hesitated at the door. "Thank you for at least hearing me. Goodbye, Arjun." When the door closed behind him, I felt a strange calm wash over me. Not victory, not sadness. Just peace. Later that night, I placed the marigolds in a glass jar near the window. The moonlight hit them softly, their bright orange glow reflecting on the wall. I sat beside them, sipping tea, thinking of all the versions of myself I had been: the wife, the mother, the forgiver, the broken woman who found a hidden phone and saw her life unravel. And then I thought of the woman I had become, the one who no longer needed someone else's love to feel complete. The phone under the bed had ended one story, but it had also begun another. Mine. Headphone closing voiceover in Auntie May's reflective tone. Sometimes, the universe has a cruel way of teaching peace. It breaks you, not to destroy you, but to show you what you're made of. I learned that day that forgiveness doesn't mean reunion. It means release. And when you finally release what hurt you, you make space for what was meant to heal you. So if you ever find your own hidden phone under the bed, don't see it as the end. See it as the truth setting you free. Because peace, real peace, begins when you stop waiting for apologies that may never come. When I look back now, it almost feels like I'm watching another woman's life, a woman who loved with her whole heart, who trusted completely, and who believed that forgiveness alone could fix anything. I know some of you listening might be standing where I once stood, staring at your own hidden phone, or letter, or secret. Maybe it's not under a bed. Maybe it's in the way someone avoids your eyes, or the silence that's grown too loud at dinner. If that's you, please hear this. You are not foolish for loving. You are not weak for hoping. And you are not broken for finally walking away. Sometimes love doesn't end with hate or betrayal. Sometimes it just ends with truth and the quiet strength to accept it. It took me a long time to realize that the person who lies to you doesn't destroy your worth. They only reveal their own. And the moment you stop chasing closure from them, you begin writing your own peace. I used to believe that moving on meant forgetting. Now I know it means remembering, but without pain. It means knowing what you survived, what you learned, and who you became because of it. And maybe that's the real gift of heartbreak. It strips away everything false until only your truest self remains. So if you're listening tonight with a heavy heart, maybe it's time to stop asking why they did it and start asking why you still let it hurt. Because healing isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's just you, waking up one morning, realizing you don't need to check the phone anymore. Because your peace finally matters more than your proof. What about you, my dear listener? Would you have done what I did? Would you have forgiven or walked away sooner? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every one. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe so you can join me again right here, where stories remind us that, even in our pain, we are never alone. Because this is Voices of Auntie May. And every voice, even the broken ones, deserves to be heard. Crescent moon.